too with council's budget. Just to highlight a few things to begin with, Intergovernmental Services is a fairly new department. We did create a vision in the last couple of years when we created the service area, and our vision is really looking at helping others to succeed and providing advisory services to other members of the community as well as the organization. Our mission as well, again, is to really to be working collaboratively with other organizations and council and the city departments, again, to work towards achieving success. The key services that are under the Intergovernmental Services area are legislative services, common services, marketing and communication, economic development, strategic services, environmental sustainability, and the internship program. The overall snapshot of the service area, which also includes council's budget, is outlined here. A number of the departments do have increases, and again, it's because these areas are have a large number of staffing components to them and not a lot of program accounts. So it is more staff support. And we'll get into some of the details of that in a minute. So in terms of City Council, I've outlined here the objectives that kind of you'll see coming through in some of the objectives as we go through the service area and a lot of the departments. So from Council's strategic plan, some of the things that we're working on in Intergovernmental Services are the community engagement and consultation framework, communications plan, customer satisfaction survey, undertaking a review of programs and services within our own area, fiscal sustainability model, post-annexation plan, and a strategy to encourage industrial land development. In terms of council's budget area, the reductions that we included in this budget were some salary savings, and again, when the salaries for council were set back in 2007 for 8, 9, and 10, and then were extended to 2011. So between 2011 and 2012, there has been savings in terms of having a lower consumer price index amount, so there was some savings there. The budget going forward, though, however, does also include 3% consumer price index amount annually for City Council. In addition, the branding and advertising account has been transferred from the council budget to marketing and communications. That was done about a year ago, but there was a glitch with some of the budgeting, and this amount, there was an amount of $36,000 that remained in council's budget, so we've eliminated and corrected that error this time around. We've also, council's budget included the Community Futures grant writer funding, and this was a 3-year funding commitment by council of $10,000 a year, and that funding commitment ends in 2011 and has not been included in this budget. However, the Community Futures has requested that we consider this, and this will be coming up later on in the referred items for consideration.
We don't need to flag it.
Okay, so so I heard Jeanette say that it is in the list and it's already printed on, so I think it is going to be discussed. Yeah, it will be discussed. Yeah. Sorry.
The other area where we see some savings will be in terms of the technology, and this is as a result of council's move from the laptops to the iPads, and that's resulted in some savings in that area. All of those savings, though, however, have gone to fund the next item, which the highlight of this coming budget, which is the 100th anniversary. in 2014, and what we've done is we'll be applying for a cultural capitals grant in the amount of $1 million, and the city's portion will be $250,000, 75-25% funding. So what we've done is included $85,000 each year that would make up the city's portion of the $250,000 commitment. Next area is the director's budget, which is on page 12. And this budget basically includes myself and one other staff person, as well as our internship program. So again, my role overall is reviewing overall the service area to ensure that we are operating within budget, that we are providing a healthy and safe environment for our employees, encouraging collaboration, innovation, and increased efficiencies, maintaining our provincial partnership in the internship program, and reducing red tape. In terms of the key reductions, and again, there's not a lot of room in this area. It's mainly salaries. We've had some reductions in the area of travel and conference attendance. And what we've done is you'll see those throughout the department budgets. That's one of the areas that most, if not all, of the departments reduced in their operating budgets over the next 3 years. In my case, we've also reduced some professional membership fees. Again, all of the departments have gone to shared printers and scanners. So originally we had looked at having smaller printers in the offices and decided that it was more efficient to have fewer printers and have them located in a couple of areas of the department. So again, we're trying to pool our resources to be able to eliminate some of the things that we have. Again, shared subscriptions and publications, we've taken a look and eliminated any duplication, and we'll be sharing those throughout the service area. And again, furniture purchases, we did just buy new furniture in the last year when we moved from the second floor to the third floor in order to bring the whole service area together. And so furniture purchases over the next 3 years in most, if not all, of the departments have either been reduced or eliminated. In terms of stationery supplies and computer supplies, again, stationery supplies, we are pooling funds to pay for that, and again, that's trying to eliminate some red tape. So instead of each department purchasing their own supplies, we'll be pooling money and having one area purchase the supplies so that we're getting rid of some of the paperwork there. And the highlights of this area is our continued involvement with the internship program. I know that the Minister of Municipal Affairs very much supports this program. We have, this is, I believe, our 5th year that we've participated, and we've been approved for a first-year intern in 2012-13 year, and we've also been approved to extend our existing first-year internship program for another year as well. So that's really great news. Next area is legislative services, and that's on page 14. And just to highlight some of the objectives of this area is the area that deals with land, and of course our land management model is going to be our focus for the next 3 years. It'll be part of a larger public lands review. Also, this is the area where our staffing provide the council agendas, and we've gone to the electronic agenda process, and also the webcasting of council meetings and provision of minutes. Again, this department supports council in the boards and committees membership that we have, and handles elections as well as census in the upcoming years. In terms of the key reductions in this area, and again, this area is mainly salaried staff. So we have increased our revenues under this area for subdivision and development appeals, and that bylaw just went through committee a few weeks ago. And we're also seeing some increases in revenue from assessment review board appeals as well. And advertising and promotion we've reduced, and what we're finding is we're using the internet and social media a lot more for advertising, so we were able to reduce advertising costs as well. In terms of the highlights, in 2013 there will be a general election, and we are going to be considering a census in 2014. And again, what we do there so that we don't have those ups and downs each year is we budget $75,000 annually and then pool that money over the 3 years to pay for both the census and the election, if there is one. The next area is common services, and that's on page 16. This area is where we have corporate common services that we provide for the organization. So this covers our insurance costs, mail and internal courier costs, solicitor services, and also City Hall photocopiers. The key reductions in this area really zero out with Aquaterra leaving the building. We have less expenses than the area of photocopying, postage costs, and courier costs. We also have a corresponding less revenue where we would cross-charge them or invoice them for those services. So we really net out. We're losing the expenses, but we're also losing the revenue. The highlights are that insurance costs are going up, and premiums, we have premiums of about $1.47 million this year. We're budgeting about a 10% increase, and that's a real guesstimate because we don't have, insurance companies don't provide us with percentage increase that they would be forecasting for future years. Couple things that have impacted the premiums, of course, is with some of the things that have been happening in that industry, that premiums are going up everywhere. Also, we had an appraisal done very recently that's going to be impacting our premiums in future years, again, in terms of looking at the values of our buildings, and that's done on a regular basis, about 5 to 7 years, I think, every 5 to 7 years. And so it is a concern for us, but it's a reality that insurance costs do rise each year. The other expense that we're looking at is in legal services, and again, this is an area that is that we have not been able to come in within our budget in previous years. So we're trying to include a more realistic amount for our legal services. So there is a fairly significant increase in this area as well. As with annexation coming on stream, we're starting to see some of the impacts of that in terms of looking at bylaws and policies and those types of legal implications that we'll have to start working on even before annexation takes place. So we have also covered some of those costs in here as well. Next area is marketing and communications. And the objectives here are, again, to ensure that we have consistent, timely, and accurate information to the public and also to our internal employees. We're working on developing a framework for community engagement and citizen participation. And if I didn't mention, that's page 18. Also, we do conduct a citizen satisfaction survey and follow up on that, and those surveys are conducted every second year. We will be working on promoting and implementing our new brand, However, you will see over the next 3 years that is being phased out, so there are some reductions in that specific account for branding. And again, ensuring that our communications activities are meeting the needs of the residents. So looking at the customer satisfaction survey and trying to pinpoint those areas that we need to try and focus on to improve. And also this area supports the 100th anniversary program and is working very closely with that committee.
I see a
Did I go
question.
way ahead?
See a question too while we find our spot. Councillor O'Toole.
Yeah, thank you very much. I just looking, thanks very much, Mayor Given. On the performance indicators on the website there, you've got number of site visits, number of pages, percentage bounce rate. Can you explain what that would be? Or have an explanation given?
Are you on page
19.
Page 19? Well, you're ahead of us into economic development already.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'll leave that till we get there then.
Or
I won't be
preview.
able to explain it then either.
You got your answer now?
Okay.
Okay, well, let's maybe just finish off with the marketing communications reductions and highlights.
Thank you, Ken. So in terms of the reductions, there was a full-time position here of communications coordinator, and there has been sharing we've been able to take advantage of with locating together in one area. So we have some cost savings in our salaries as this position is being shared with economic development. There's been some reductions in membership fees and some reduced costs in advertising and promotion. And as I mentioned earlier, the branding initiative is also going to be phased out by 2014. However, we have included some consulting fees in there as well. Because of the shared staffing, we foresee that we might need some consulting services in terms of some writing or graphic design work. In terms of the highlights in this area, again, it's the work on the 100th anniversary for the city in 2014. Working very hard on enhancing our communications, both with the public and with internally with our employees across the organization. The brand transition is very exciting, and looking at how we can implement that over the next 3 years, and looking at new initiatives for citizen engagement. The next area is economic development. And Councillor O'Toole, I will try and get that information to you. I do not have an explanation or definition of that here today, but I will get it to you.
Maybe we have some additional information. There's a council that wants to take a stab at it. Councillor Wong?
Yes, thank you, Mayor Given. I believe the percent bounce rate has to do with reducing the number of clicks to get to a site. So previously, it would take you 4 clicks to find any information on the leisure center, and now it's down to 1 because it's right on our main page.
There you go. Thanks, Councillor Wong.
So economic development is on page 20 of your budget books. And again, this area in terms of the objectives and the business plan has been developed in consultation with our new Economic Development Advisory Committee. And the objectives that we're looking at in this business plan are, again, supporting the development needs of the local businesses, the local business community, encouraging new business investment and new business attraction, promoting community stakeholders to take an active role in economic development, providing timely and accurate benchmark information on regional economy, and marketing the city as a business hub both in provincially, nationally, and internationally.
I see a question. Councillor Crokin?
Thanks, Mayor Given. I'd like this one flagged. I'd like to see what kind of a package we have, or what package is available for distribution for businesses that are thinking of relocating to Grand Prairie.
Okay, so is that maybe an item that we could refer to committee? 'Cause
Yeah.
it's a information request about what sort of things we can gather. Okay,
Yeah,
so maybe-
a number of years ago, we used to have a package, Mr. Mayor, and I don't see one. I've asked for one, and we don't have. Other people have asked me, what do you have? Like showing our stats and availability of schools and university or college.
Yeah.
Sure.
Okay.
Refer it to committee.
Sure, we'll.
Yes,
add that to
Mr.
committee.
Mayor, we are working on developing a new business package. It's in the process right now, so we could certainly report and provide an update to General Government Services Committee on that.
Okay, thanks very much.
In terms of the reductions in this area, again, the one reduction was in terms of salary savings, and again, that was with pooling resources and sharing staff between marketing, communications, and economic development. The focuses, the highlights for this business plan include the industrial attraction strategy, developing a cost of doing business study or feasibility study, labor attraction and retention, and also developing a tourism strategy. And this budget also includes the Grand Prairie Regional Tourism Association funding, and we'll be bringing a report on that to GGS very shortly.
See a question, Councillor Gustafson?
Thanks, Mayor Gibbon. Is our sports and tourism strategy part of this, or is that part of recreation and community development?
Maybe for the Director of Community Services?
Mr. Mayor, that is part of community recreation and sport development.
Okay.
Okay, thanks for that.
Next area is strategic services. The objectives here are to increase public and staff engagement with the city. So strategic services and communications are working very closely together on citizen engagement and providing communications via the website and social media to the public. And also, we're working on increasing access to services and information, so providing more transparent and open data services to our citizens. We're improving staff support for providing services and increased staff efficiency, so applications that can be web-based that would assist other organizations or other departments, sorry. For example, we heard about the permitting system earlier, and that's one of the areas that Strategic Services is working with Development Services to implement there. Again, trying to promote a positive view of the city and improve understanding of city services, and again, focusing on our website for that. And advancing advocacy initiatives of council and the organization, and reducing red tape in city policies. So this department not only deals with the website services, but supports council in its advocacy initiatives and also in its policy review and red tape initiatives.
See a question, Councillor McLean?
Thank you, Mayor Gibbon. I think this is very important because engaging with workers in the city, there's a lot of individuals that went out and felt memberships at the multiplex. So just letting everybody know that I think this is part and parcel of that and help make that a success.
Great.
Thanks very much, Councillor McLean.
A couple of the reductions that we've actually had a revenue reduction. In the past, we had a transfer of $75,000 that came from the IT capital budget into this area, and that was to pay for staffing that did the website content coordination, and that has been eliminated for 2012. However, we have also some salary savings. We've had new staff come on in that department earlier this year. They've come on at a lower salary rate, so we've also had some savings in that area as well. The highlights, we're planning to launch our new website early in 2012. And I think, as Councillor McLean indicated, getting information out to our staff on things like the multiplex memberships usually is done through our internal website or Signet, and we are looking at focusing on that website in 2012 to upgrade it and update it, same as we're doing for our external website this year. Muni Portal will be an area that's looked at in 2013 by the Information Technology Department, and our Strategic Services area works very closely with them on the look of the Muni Portal and what is seen, how that integrates with our website. And also enhancing citizen engagement and social media sites, so very much supporting the organization in using the website for whatever forms of citizen engagement to enhance that, and also to encourage and support more social usage of social media sites. Environmental sustainability is on page 24. This department provides education to the public on protecting local water resources. They provide education and programs around composting. They are looking at implementation and support for Partners for Climate Protection program, working on increasing idle reduction education and looking at the potential of a bylaw in that area, increasing awareness and participation of city environment programs, such as City Scrub and bottled water, those types of programs, reducing resource consumption, and creating and implementing a community environmental scan. Key reductions in this area include advertising spending, and again, what we're seeing here is more use of website and social media for advertising, which has allowed us to have some cost savings in that area. The department has reduced some travel expenses, and the public relations account is where all of the programs that the Environment Department provides, and they have made some small reductions in the program areas. And again, as I mentioned earlier, the printing, reducing printing and binding costs. In terms of the highlights, they're looking at hosting a water summit here in Grand Prairie in 2012. We are working with engineering services on the Yellowfish program, which is education program that we're taking into the schools about the stormwater system. Also, we're working on the looking at bringing forward an idle reduction bylaw sometime prior to 2014. And we're working on a wetlands policy that we are working with planning and development very closely, and doing a wetlands inventory and looking at bringing forward an actual policy by 2014.
I believe that was all the items in Intergovernmental Services area. Were there any questions for Jeanette on any of those items? Looks like there might not have been.
Thank you. That's it.
And so our next one up is Protective Services. So our director gets the most. We're almost up. Okay, we're ready to go. Ms. Walker.
Thank you. So Protective Services, of course, is disaster services, fire, police, enforcement services, and crime prevention. Just point out, this area has 249 full-time positions within the budget, so it's largely people, although there are a number of other costs involved. This gives you the overview of the entire area, and we'll get into a breakdown of each of these as we go forward. First, we'll cover off some of the major influences in this three-year cycle. The loss of the county contract revenues, $2.2 million. Building cost increases include the third fire station coming on. We hadn't, of course, budgeted for that because it's not open yet. Will open in 2011 or 2012. New Protective Services building slated to open in February to March of 2012. Pound building utility costs and borrowing costs had previously not been in the budget as an item, but now we know what they are and they're actually reflected in this budget. And then, of course, there's a second location at the multiplex. Not a lot of cost associated with that, but we do have some. So, on the personnel side, we've had a fire contract settlement that brought in, I believe it's $1.2 million cost increase in our fire protection budget. Step increases across the board. There's a number of folks that are in that territory. And I would point out that with new staff, we've actually staffed up over the last 2 years for the fire hall. The cost of those new staff starts off at a probationary period and works through to a first-class firefighter through 4 levels. So you really get a COLA cost every year reflected in the settlements around the union, but there's also step increases just built into the process with those folks. So it doesn't stop at year 1, it stops at year 3 basically. And then, of course, the other thing that has happened is the province has negotiated a 20-year contract for RCMP services, and part of that process was to reflect changed costs. So what you've now got is the 2011 cost per member was $114,000 to us. It's now in 2012 going to be $126,000. So it's a significant increase in that number. We again have 83 folks in that area. So how did we actually deal with trying to reach?
Sorry, Bill, there's just there's a question here.
Okay.
Councillor O'Toole.
Is there any money from the federal agencies or the province to support this wage increase?
For the RCMP,
Yes.
actually, what we pay is 90% of the full cost. That is the number that's actually reflected on the screen there, is our 90% cost. The federal government actually contributes 10%, reflective of the federal work that's done by those forces in, across Canada, basically. As far as the province, there is a grant that we receive. I believe it's about $825,000 per year, based on their formula towards policing costs. That number has not changed. It follows our census, but really hasn't changed a lot in the last 3 years. So,
okay. Just one follow-up question: who decides the numbers that we require for the town or the city? Remember?
Actually, the local service is decided by council. So you have the ability to set service levels.
Okay.
No different than any other service that we have. The RCMP actually provide a business plan, and if you feel we need more or less of them, we can certainly talk about that.
So they definitely give us recommendations.
Yes. Again, and we've actually had some studies done in the past where we reflected how we stack up against other municipal services of like services kind of thing.
I know last year we turned down a couple positions with the RCMP because of budget restraints.
Right, we actually have a plan that identified, I believe it's 14 more members than we have currently reflected in this plan, so.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Okay. Thank you.
So how did we get there? So these are, again, I go back to the people are the, certainly the uncontrollable piece. But we did look internally to all of the budgets and see if there's some areas we could either increase revenues or decrease costs. First, we dealt with fire specialty services and putting a price tag on some of those. You've just got in front of you a bylaw reflective of some of the fees that the fire service would like to charge into the future. And you've got first reading on that and certainly an opportunity to have some public input on that. New dispatch customers, the dispatch folks are actually actively involved in trying to attract new customers in the northwestern part of the province. And we look forward and see more coming towards us kind of every year. It's not a not a large dollar figure, but it certainly we see that part of the process is northwestern Alberta will likely be dispatched pretty much wholly by the Grand Prairie Fire Department over time for the fire services. User fees and permits, of course, there will be ongoing requests for direction on some of those, but some of those which we feel fairly confident are reflected in the budget. And fee for services on certainly the fire side of things is really reflected now. So the other areas that we've actually decreased costs, hydrant rentals, we were paying Aquaterra, I believe it's $110,000 a year, and we've actually done away with that cost. We had some discussion with them. They had actually asked for a large increase, and we went back to the books and said, really, it's not ours to pay for that. That's part of the infrastructure costs, and they've come to an agreement on that. So that $110,000 has actually gone away. Telephone expenses, wherever we could, we've reduced the number of phones or tried to minimize the cost of those. Travel expenses, meeting expenses, we've had to look at those across the board as well. Training and training, wherever we can, we've reduced it. We are taking the approach of trying to train more in Grand Prairie and less travel associated with it. Unfortunately, it doesn't always work that way simply because we need to train the trainer at least, and we do have some specialty services that require facilities that we just don't have in Grand Prairie. Furniture and equipment, of course, we've actually had a look at that. Given that we are moving to a new protective services building, the third fire hall, some of those costs are right up front going to be covered off, and we don't anticipate incurring them over time here. So, software, we did have some amount in our GPREP project that we've actually reduced now, given that we don't anticipate a big cost with it over the next 3 years. We're trying to piggyback onto some other folks' software. Structural costs in our buildings, wherever we could manage that. Fleet cross charges have had an effect on this area as well, so very positively, and consulting fees. So. Any questions on that? Moving forward. So now we're actually on page 163 of your book, which is Protective Services. And first off, you'll notice on the, if you went back to that front chart that we had, Protective Services in 2011 included the GPREP project. And now we've actually separated that off so that we can reflect our contribution to GPREP. Last year, or in 2011, we actually had, I believe it was $149,000 in our budget, reflective of that. This year, we're actually going to, this 2012, it'll be $95,000 that is reflected in the GPREP process. So, so part of this is still in the budget in this area. So we manage GPREP through Protective Services on behalf of the 6 communities. Hythe, Beaver Lodge, Sexsmith, Wembley, and the county. So some of our successes, the all hazards response plan is now in place and actually actively being used, as well as being exercised, and training is going on actually this week around the process to to manage major events within the system. We've had Emergency Operations Center. We actually upgraded the technology in there, or kind of in the process of doing that at this point. So we will have more ability to do stuff online within the room, as well as connected to the outside world when we have a major disaster. Regional disaster exercises, we've had a major tabletop exercise followed by a major field exercise. Very positive outcomes and lots of learnings on that. And continue to strengthen that regional model around all of our services within the protective services area. So looking forward in the overall of protective services, we're looking at building and supporting those partnerships. We're working on a community engagement, certainly supporting things like the neighborhood associations and the safe growth model in the community. We are looking at how do we balance excellence with value and making sure that we're not, stepping into territory that others maybe should be there with us, or that we should establish a broader look at. Interdepartmental service support services. One of these we are doing in the next year here is we have a number of pockets of casual staff within the service area, and what we've agreed to is that we're going to create a process to manage those together, so that when the police services or fire services or crime prevention have a need, that if there's an ability within the service area to support that need, we can do it within, rather than going to the market and finding another casual. We may actually own some of them already, and would be nice to be able to give them a little more work rather than, so we're looking at crossing those borders as a managed process rather than just as a if it happens kind of process. So exceptional service, that project is firmly in our areas on my list, as well as Jennifer Wood is heading it up, the committee that's going to deal with it. And we see, again, it's one that goes across all the borders in the city. Health and wellness and safety, of course, is a major thrust for us. The new thing in that area for us, of course, is that we'll bring on a new building. We will establish a safety team in that building and have a different process there than for those groups to come together again. And of course, fiscal sustainability is on our list overall. We want to make sure we're sustainable into the future.
Excuse me, I see Councillor Rice.
Okay.
Mr. Walker, you mentioned the casuals.
Yes.
Do I recall, it seemed to me we had some discussions at one time that we look at moving casuals up to permanent position if they've been doing the same job at the casual designation for 3 years.
Actually, in the fire services, what we have agreements to do now is we actually pay them at the same rate as the full-time position, kind of at the start point. But we reflect.
That doesn't include benefits, though.
Yeah, it does not include the same benefit package, but we have a process where number of hours in the job is then reflected in going to the next step. So we're trying to say if you're working casual, that you're just as valuable as that full-time person over time.
So I guess that eliminates my concern about sharing, that they wouldn't be doing the same job then.
Right. The other thing that we are looking at, of course, is some of our casual groups have different requirements coming in. So if you're in the police world, you must be security cleared. So how do we encourage the other groups, casuals, to get security cleared so they can actually access that work? That's the conversation we need to formalize and finalize in the next year. So.
Thank you very much.
Okay. Are we back to the presentation? Okay. Okay, so now we're into the fire department, and the fire department is on page 173 of your business plan. So their successes, of course, have been that they've moved forward with a third fire hall. They've upgraded the training facility at the South Fire Hall and have actually identified the training process for the 3 stations. So Each of the stations will have a specialty area that they train on. Certainly their response to Slave Lake was a major thing over the last year that they participated in, along with the RCMP and a number of other staff within the city of Grand Prairie. Labor relations, we've actually have a very positive labor relations process within the fire department. Even where there's disagreement as to things like the contract, it's a very positive working relationship that they have there. And there's Friends Feeding Friends initiative that the firefighters have been involved with for the last couple of years. So. Get to the right button here. Okay, so moving forward, finalizing the 3-station model is in their business plan. And that, again, will be underway over the course of the year. There's a number of things that are happening already, but once they move in, then there'll be real finalization of that model. Focus on training, readiness responder, or responder readiness, skill maintenance, and specialization skills. And this idea of not everybody will be trained to the same level in every part of the service. The live fire or burn training center was in the capital plan and certainly has not been successful there, but that's on their list of priorities over the next number of years. Delivery of public education programs at Safety City, that's moving forward. They've been actively delivering programs already, and they have a plan to carry on and support that program over there. Regional 911 call, answer, and dispatch, of course, the expansion of that and the maintenance of the connection with the folks that they do business for. I think it's about 46 communities that we actually do dispatch for right now. And there's a number of things going on in 911 world that they are continuing to try to get revenue from that at this point, for instance, we get no revenue from cellular or wireless devices. And those devices now make up, I believe, 60% of the calls coming into the center. So, so a majority of the issues are starting to be focused on how do we track those, how do we interact with them, but how do we also get some funding that reflects the use of those. So, again, exceptional customer service experiences. They have a project there. Employee safety and wellness, and we have a very well managed process to support employees in this profession. So I think they've done a great job of putting that into a package. And dealing with the brand of the Grand Prairie Fire Department. Next is RCMP, unless there's further questions.
I see a couple here. Councillor Radburn. Thank you, Mayor Given. So, Bill, I mean, the bottom line here is that we're looking at in salaries 1.5 million increase, goods 163, operating costs another 1.77, which are very significant in our budget. So, can you just add any more detail to your opening remarks? Is it all about operating costs of the new fire hall and the protective services building on the operating costs, and salaries, is it basically the step increases?
Step increases, the fact that this is the first full year of all of the staff being on staff as well for the third fire hall, because some of them have been hired over the last year. So there's kind of a double bump there, plus the contract negotiations actually settled with a $1.2 million cost in itself. So,
not all of that is in this line, is it?
It is in the salaries line, for
Okay.
sure. Yeah, yeah.
Thank you.
Does that help?
Operating costs now?
Operating, just let me grab my paper here.
11.6 to 13.4 million.
Okay. So basically, they've looked at fixed costs, travel and subsistence for the 24 firefighters. There's again some training costs that go into the operating piece reflective of new employees. Again, so if you took this snapshot in time and said it's 2 years from now, those costs would be a little different in the sense that we don't have to send them to some of those courses. The contractual costs for the physician and the wellness fitness initiative. Again, I think that was not fully reflected in 2011 because it was a new program, 2010. Clothing, other general goods, they've looked at all that. They have consumables, of course, more firefighters means more clothes, means more flashlights, more batteries. I mean, it's kind of, you put it into the operating piece. Computer technology, a new hall, we've got more computers, more access points for firefighters. So that's part of that whole package as well.
That was part of goods?
Yes.
Okay, not operating costs.
Okay, operating costs. That's the overall, I believe. That's a subtotal of all those, yeah. So it's goods, there's the goods and the salaries is
Salaries
is the big one, right? So,
Good.
does that help?
Yeah, that helps because that was a total, not a separate
No, it's
line.
not, it's the
Ooh.
total, yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, that clears it up.
Okay.
Okay, Councillor Crokin?
Thanks, Mayor Given. I don't know if it's appropriate to flag that 911. I mean, I paid on my bill, and I just assumed that it was going to our area of 911. I assumed wrong, obviously.
I think this is also an area that the City of Grand Prairie's put a resolution to the AUMA on, actually.
Yes.
And I think was adopted. I'm trying to remember.
I believe it was, yeah.
Yeah.
It is actually one that the province is now looking at seriously. Through AEMA, they actually have a group that's actually looking at 911 services and how do they, so it's definitely one that we need to be in the game on. And,
Yeah.
if I see it as if we need to have the folks around this table take the message that we'll be doing that in the near future here, because we're sort of at that stage where there's a new opportunity with a new minister, and we need to get this one high on the list.
Absolutely, because I'd like to know where that money's going.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, well, and so the City of Grand Prairie has already taken a fairly strong position on this, and I think will continue to do, because it's one where we need the powers that be that dedicate where that revenue goes to ensure that it goes to 911 operators like the City of Grand Prairie. So, yeah. Councillor McLean?
Thank you, Mayor, again. I like the flag salaries. I know it was a negotiated thing, but depending on how many lieutenants or whatever, I'd like to know later on brought up as well is the price increase, and then what the average gets, 3%, 2%. I think it was 5 or 6, so I do want to flag salaries for the fire department.
Okay, so we'll flag fire department salaries for a little bit further information or more detailed information.
Sure.
Okay, moving on to RCMP then, Mr. Walker?
Sure. Just don't want to push the button prematurely. I might be past where I'm at. Yeah, there we are. So basically, the RCMP, I think we skipped a slide here, and I don't have a means of going back, do I? Oh, there we are. I give one more time, Ken. There we are. So basically, the successes in the RCMP world have been the satellite office, getting ready for that. And just to give you a picture of that, it might seem like a simple decision and process, but it takes a lot of work on behalf of the staff and the folks that built the place to meet the standards that RCMP required to open a facility like that. I would say that there's a number of those have been built around the province. This will actually be the first one that actually operates as an RCMP location, because it's an onerous process to not only build it to their standards, but also to be prepared to operate it to their standards. So the other one that's come forward and we've actually implemented over the last 6 months is the e-collision, which is electronic reporting of collisions. And what we're trying to do there is get people to do this through either the internet at home, through a kiosk at the police building, or through a process electronically, could be a handheld device even. And the intent is to take some work off the front counter folks and to end up with the same information that we're required going through the process. Again, we're one of the first to move forward with this, and we've moved forward with, again, a number of roadblocks, but it is actually out there and working, and we anticipate kind of continuing to educate people on the ability of to fill out those forms there. School Resource Officer Program, and certainly the education program that's going on has been very positive in the community as well. So moving forward, the RCMP and police services are looking at an exceptional service, kind of an internal process as well as an external process. How do they tie into the community? Programming-wise, we're looking at continuing current initiatives and partnerships, but making sure that we're doing that through a consultative process so that we get the most mileage out of some of those programs rather than assuming that we're hitting the mark and really finding out that we hit it maybe 80% when we could do 100. Traffic initiatives, of course, we still have a major problem in Grand Prairie with traffic and driving and the enforcement of some of the issues that we know are out there. So there's going to be a renewed enforcement focus on that. Enhanced connection with outside agencies through consultative processes and meetings. There's going to be a continuation of focusing on organized crime in the community. It hasn't gone away. It's somewhat under control, but we still have some elements here. So again, looking at this whole thing of moving forward with other partners and how do we disrupt organized crime or crimes within the community, and how do we take a more community-based approach to some of that stuff. We're seeing some successes around, for instance, the can't remember the name of the place, the old police building area. Yeah, community village, sorry. So we're seeing some successes with that approach there, and the intent is to carry on with more of those approaches using crime prevention and RCMP and enforcement services as well as other members to the team. Maximizing the opportunities for revenue. Certainly what we intend to do there is, again, look at any of those things that we now charge for and whether we should be charging a fee for some things. And again, streamlining our processes.
I did see a question, Mr. Walker.
Sure.
Councilor McLean.
I just wanted to say kudos to RCMP because around the old Catholic Church, it's been very successful, and I've heard a lot of good complaints about that. Not complaints, not complaints. A lot of that it's been good. It's been working. Good compliments. That's what I was not complaint. Compliments, and they deserve a big pat in the back for that one.
Good. Thank you.
Thanks, Councilor McLean. Councilor Rice.
So just one little comment on your chart, the first chart. I hate the first line. Continue current initiatives despite limited funding. They haven't had their budgets cut at all, though my first thought is you want to live with limited funding. I'll show you limited funding because I hate those kind of things. So just keep that in mind for next year.
Yep.
I have 4 questions. Under the program objective, lobby City Council to use overtime and casual staff budgets. So this is nothing that's happening now. This will be coming forward at some point. I assume it doesn't impact this budget.
Actually, with the changes that were made to the city manager's ability to deal with staffing, I'm not sure this will come forward to council. Really what it is a group of an amount of money that we're now spending on overtime and casual staff that we could convert and get better use of by having some positions funded.
Except that I read this as saying you don't want to fund those positions. You want to use overtime and casual.
No, actually, we want to go the other way.
Okay.
We're actually spending about $300,000 on that stuff right now that we see there's a better use for. So
Sorry, Mr. Walker. Councilor Rice, where are you?
On page 167, program objectives. Item number 1. Okay, so I get it now. It's just written that was kind of confusing. Educate the public on the services provided by the RCMP. This is program objective 3. I suspect that might be a waste of money unless someone in Canada lives in a cave. I suspect they would know what the RCMP does, so I hope that's not a high budget item. Number 10, develop a fiscal plan to continue to fund programs losing provincial grant funding. Can you give an example?
Actually, if we have the PACT program that is going to be on your agenda today, or tomorrow, to talk about, which is grant funded. It has been grant funded for 3 years.
What does it stand for?
It's police, basically it's the group that are responding to mental health responses in the community. It's a mental health worker.
Police Action Crisis Team, okay.
Yes. So that's an example of one where we've actively pursued some fix in the community, and now the grant funding is going away. So we see that we should be going after that province to continue to fund some of those things as well.
Okay, and 18, increase user fees to market value. Review groups that aren't paying fees now, i.e. hockey teams.
Mr. Walker?
So basically what the intent of this budget cycle is to look at any groups that we're now doing services for, and that will come back as a discussion paper or a recommendation to council. So if the intent isn't to willy-nilly increase fees, but to do what the fire department did, which is to lay out, here's what we think we should charge relative to not only the market, but what are other services like ours across the province charging, or what are other community groups paying. In some cases, we let some off the hook, we don't let others off the hook. So,
okay, thank you.
Okay.
Okay, I see Councillor Crokin.
Thanks, Mayor Given. Bill, we have the province, they're kind of cute, they download things on us kind of quietly, like this brand new distractive driving bylaw. That's a provincial issue. Now, did they have any funds follow that so we could, help out our police officers? I mean, they're strung out right now with having to do just their regular duties. And then here's another one.
There's no provincial funding other than on the advertising side of the program. That is, the law has been passed. The province is actively advertising it, but the police forces and enforcement service groups are expected to add that to the list of laws that they enforce. So, to some degree, you're correct. I guess we see it in maybe a little different light, in the sense that it does do something for safety in the city of Grand Prairie if we can keep them from being distracted when they're driving. So, there's a positive for that.
Within the limited resources that we already have.
Within the limited resources, that's certainly.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, that looks like all the questions on this portion, Bill.
Thank you.
Oh, maybe I spoke too soon. Councillor Radburn?
Thanks, Bill. Can you speak to the services category on page 168?
168. Hold on.
I think in terms of the salaries part, I think you've given kind of an overview of the contract extension, et cetera. But, yeah, services.
Okay, services actually are the contract with the RCMP. So that is the cost of our contract having gone up. So it went from 9,798,000 up to 10,702,000.
Thank you.
In year one.
Thanks, Mr. Walker.
All right, moving on from RCMP into enforcement services. And enforcement services would be page 171. Again, I apologize for jumping all over, but that's the way it's worked out. So enforcement services, one of the things that has happened over the course of the last year is that the amount of animal calls and focus on that has gone up significantly in the community. So we've actually reacted to that and put the appropriate resources towards that. So now we actually have double our coverage 7 days a week. We're getting a lot of calls that were being handled by the community peace officers on the weekends, but really took them off the focus that they're paid to do. So this is a better use of resources. Programming at Safety City, they've been very active in getting involved in the programming at Safety City around road safety, and having a continued presence on that site to teach the 10,000 kids that are going to expected to come through that site over the course of a year. And we've also firmed up the second photo radar enforcement unit and made sure that it's, we actually have a plan now to ensure we don't have gaps in staffing of that. It's been a real challenge over the course of the last couple of years because the folks that do that are contracted through the commissionaires, and then there's a issue of getting them in and getting them security cleared. This one's going to go away as an issue right actually has effective now. So now we have a group of people that's going to be dedicated to that, so we can be more consistent about the program. Moving forward, again, continued traffic enforcement focus, and certainly on the photo enforcement being more consistent. Parking enforcement, the anticipated process there is to continue to work with the Downtown Association and the parking lots across the city and make sure that we're appropriately enforcing that process. We have bylaw enforcement, of course, animal control, and again, this whole area focusing on community education, everything from parades to the Safety City process.
I see Councillor Wong.
Thank you, Mayor Gibbon. Bill, do we have the appropriate resources to monitor the new snow routes for the parking ban?
It does create a bit of a challenge in the sense that when we actually get a snowfall that we have to get active on that, it tends to take us off pretty much everything else other than emergent issues. So what we do is refocus those folks that we now have doing traffic safety or in some cases bylaw processes to actively get involved in making sure that the snow routes are clear. Would we like more? Sure, but the reality is the last winter we seemed to do okay in conjunction with Public Works staff. Seems to be have worked out reasonably well over the course of that large snowfall. So,
okay, maybe this year is a good year to monitor it, since we
Yes.
are putting on quite a few more snow routes
Yes.
and enforcing them this year.
yeah, and I think we're getting clear about what the role of Public Works staff can be versus what our role needs to be as well. So, the idea of who can do what in the process and when it's appropriate for enforcement services staff to be out there doing stuff versus when Frank's folks need to be out there.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
Okay, moving on to crime prevention. So crime prevention, the Young Youth Intervention Diversion Program is another one that's on your list for discussion the final day, because it's another grant-funded program that will go away if we don't fund it ourselves at this point. Safe growth, of course, is the overriding focus that these folks have, and have refocused all of their programs to make sure that they can properly manage safe growth into the future. Facilitating, building, and enhancing community neighborhood associations and connections and relationships. We continue to be a key partner in doing that, even though we've started to move the responsibility for neighborhood associations over to Gary's area. We see that that's a never-ending, we need to be at the table and be part of the process. And certainly mobilizing and engaging community. And again, this group mobilizes around issues in the community. It also is mobilizing around making sure that we're in the game on not just reactive to issues, but also ahead of the curve on trying to prevent issues from occurring. So things like the art process that was just done through the Center for Creative Arts, using kids to help control graffiti in the community. It's certainly a good example of moving things forward properly.
I see a couple of questions, Mr. Walker. Councillor O'Toole?
Thank you very much, Mayor Given. Bill, just a question on the grants. 2011, we had 100,000, and 2012 proposed 75. Where would that grant come from? What's the source?
That grant is an actual us paying out money.
Okay.
It's a grant. The city
So there's-
provides to
there's
ex-
no
It's a
other-
grant that we would actually pay out, and it's designed around the, it was originally a $100,000 grant, designed around the, trying to encourage neighborhood associations and safety teams within neighborhoods. So what has happened is the first, I guess 2010 amount that was in the budget, we've actually put aside, and Kylie and her folks actually can access that money to encourage neighborhood associations to form to support that process. This is the grant that would continue on to move forward with safety teams and encourage folks to have safety plans within their neighborhood, and certainly encourage any of those programs that would enhance neighborhoods' ability to be strong and to look after their own issues.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. I see Councillor Crokin.
Thanks, Mayor Bill. Bill, on the crime prevention education, does that have a component to go to all the schools? Do they, or does the RCMP look after that, or would they look after that?
Well, crime prevention has taken a step back from what they used to be very active in bringing in speakers and moving the message into the school system and into the community. When we refocused on safe growth, we really took a step back from that and said, well, there's, as much as that has a value, there's more value in trying to form strong community and strong neighborhood associations and strong groups within the neighborhoods working on some of these things. So they are doing less of that. They're being strategic about who they bring into the community. But certainly we've seen a major decrease in the last year on how many of those they can actually do within the budget. So, yeah.
Councillor Radburn.
Thank you, Mayor Given. So Bill, there's still, RCMP still has their DARE program that goes into schools?
RCMP still has the DARE program. They're very active in DARE, but they also have some other programs within the school system. They're also actively on the Safe Community site as well. So
Thank you.
Yep.
Okay, doesn't look like any further questions, Bill,
Okay.
so carry on.
Cool. So moving forward, community mobilization, of course, is part of the process. And Gary and I were talking over the break here. Really, this whole area of focusing on the neighborhood associations and neighborhoods, it's the responsibility of both our service areas, but it's also broader than all of that. It encompasses the entire city organization because it does touch on what the neighborhood needs out of the city as well. So that's one of the focuses there. Crime prevention education, of course. The programs that, there are quite numerous programs that they've continued to support. A number of different partnerships, exceptional service, and of course, working within a fiscal responsibility. The other thing that's changing for this group, of course, is they're in a work environment now that's actually very positive for them, but they look forward to moving into the new Protective Services building because they're still working out of 2 or 3 different places with supplies, and volunteers are somewhat limited where they are at. So anticipate moving into the building in February or March. And we're back to this. This is the last slide in my area, unless there's questions.
Okay, any questions, comments for Director Walker? Mr. Radburn.
Thank you, Mayor Given. So Bill, I flagged, what did I call it? I call it Neighborhood Safety and Development Grant.
Right.
It seems to me that is similar to your vision of the 75,000. So I was thinking of some support for neighborhood associations if they wanted to do a community garden or do something that would mobilize their community and make it safer and better. And would also provide some monies where safety audits were done And oftentimes with safety audits, some things have to happen, and so those grants could be applied for. Is that the concept of the 75,000?
Very much. That is exactly what we anticipated, when we originally established that as a $100,000 amount in the budget. That was really the thrust of it, was to have some pot of money that we could ask the neighborhood to move forward with and help them out.
So with that information, Mayor Given, I really feel that's really important if we want to support and see these things realized, part of our vision. We needed that. But given that information, I'll withdraw my flagged item unless,
Okay.
we'll withdraw. Thank you.
Okay, thanks very much, Councillor Weber. So, Director Walker, is that something then that will be coming back to committee about a process? Like, is it envisioned that there would be a process that neighborhood associations could apply for that money? Is that something that's going to come to committee?
And that has, I guess, the wheels under that need to now be worked out between Kylie and Karen's areas, because really it should be accessible through both of them. So what we anticipate is that some process where it'll come back to a committee or some form of council to get an approval to move forward spending that money.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions for Director Walker on the budget summary page or any of the other areas that he covered? Doesn't look like there is. I know that we're headed into, I think, one final service area. We've been at it for an hour and a quarter now, and so maybe time to take a little bit of a break. I think Mr. Anderson's area is fairly extensive as well, so we'll take a 10-minute break, and then we'll be back at our seats. Okay, thank you.
So what did I have?